Well, hey RSM, and welcome back to our next video. Last time we dug into the law and how we should look at the law through the lens of Christ, how we should think about it in relationship to Christ. And this time I wanted to slow down a little bit and dig into this list that Paul gives. I know he says a lot of things that might catch our attention, and we want to take some time and unpack these a little bit. The way I want to set that up is I want to break down these things into three things that I want us to remember as we read through this list of things that Paul says the law is for. Go back to verse 9. He says, "Understanding this, the law is not laid down for the just, but for the lawless and disobedient, for the ungodly and sinners, for the unholy and profane, for those who strike their fathers and mothers, for murderers, the sexually immoral, men who practice homosexuality, enslavers, liars, perjurers, and whatever else is contrary to sound doctrine." As we dig into this list, I want us to remember three things. The first is that this list is not exhaustive. This list is not the only thing that the law should point us towards Christ for. There are more sins than what is listed here. And we shouldn't view any one of these sins as worse than another. Paul wants us to think about one group of people, and that is the lawless and disobedient. That is, for all of these things in this list, they categorize people into those who need to understand their brokenness and those who need Jesus. The first is that this list is not exhaustive. The second thing that I think we need to remember about this list is that we all find ourselves in it. You may not beat your parents like it says here. You may not enslave people like it says here, or murder, or any of these other things. Yet you can find yourself maybe in the category of a liar, or you can find yourself as somebody that has been disobedient. We all find ourselves in this list. I challenge you to look back at the law in Exodus and in the Old Testament. Look back at what God gave for his people to live by. And if you can look at that and say that you completely match up and line up and meet all of those standards, then you have just found yourself in the category of liar. There's no way anybody can meet the standard that God sets in the law. The only person who has ever done that is Jesus. He has a 100% track record when it comes to the law. None of us can say that. And so we find ourselves in this list as well. The first thing is that this list isn't exhaustive. The second thing that I want us to remember is that we can all find ourselves in this list. And the third thing that I want us to remember as we read this list is that the aim of the church is to demonstrate love to this list. The aim of the church is to love those who are ungodly, to love the sinner, to love the unholy and profane. We saw Jesus do this in the Gospel of John time and time again. And if you're in the church, you understand what this is like. If you're a believer, you understand what it is to be ungodly or disobedient and yet feel and experience and know the love of God. Maybe you find yourself in this list in need of being loved, and you haven't felt the type of love that Paul unpacks in verse 5 there. You've had a dirty heart because you've sinned in some of these ways. You have a sour conscience because you've sinned in some of these ways. Or you felt like a fake, or like you're not really showing people who you really are because you have sinned in some of these ways. The church is to step in that moment, like it has for many of you guys, and demonstrate the love. Remember, Paul said that the church's role is to love and to combat those things. When we love, we demonstrate that the best weapon against a dirty heart, a sour conscience, and feeling like a fake is love that gives a pure heart, a good conscience, and a sincere faith. That is the aim of the church. And that's what we need to think about. Whenever we find ourselves in this list, we need to remember that the gospel, the good news, is about love. And whenever we see other people maybe participating in these things, we need to understand that we're supposed to be the church that demonstrates love. We have the best news that we can possibly offer them, and a pure heart, a good conscience, and a sincere faith. Next week, we will dig into the second half of chapter 1 here in 1 Timothy. And so make sure that you read through those verses a couple times, and we'll dig into those next time.